Hello, 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 everyone. Dr. Rowena Winkler here. And I am so excited to launch into this particular conversation with one of my former students, now friend, Kat Pierre. We're going to talk about her Saturn return and see how that's going in the midst of Sagittarius season. So, welcome, Kat. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. So let me explain what a Saturn return is, and then we'll get into it just in case there are folks out there that are not familiar with the Saturn return. So the Saturn return happens around your 30th birthday. So it's like anywhere between your 29th year to like your 31, 32 year of existence on the planet. And essentially what that means is that much like how planets go forward and backward and whatnot, Saturn takes 30 years to make a full what is it? Uh, what is it? Path or motion? It takes it takes it takes Saturn 30 years to come back to the same point that you were at the moment of your birth. And what does that mean? So Saturn as a planet represents this very um disciplinarian type of energy. It's very much, it rules Capricorn. So it's very much regimented and this is what we're going to do, that sort of vibe. And so when an individual goes through their Saturn return, what that means is that it can basically be a bit of a boot camp, right? So it can knock you around a little bit, and it's essentially a time where the universe it may be calling you to do certain things or to make certain changes or to follow up certain path. And for me personally, what scared me about the Saturn return was I heard that if you don't roll with what the universe is showing you or is moving you toward, you have to wait another 30-year cycle to have another chance. And that really freaked me out. I was like, oh no, I don't want to wait another 30 years. The time of my Saturn return was actually in Sagittarius. And
Mm.
it basically I was this is when I decided to leave academia. This is when I decided to no longer be a full-time tenure track professor and to try something new, which to for me and for a lot of folks that was a pretty big deal. So anyway, so that's the Saturn return. If you want more information, feel free to let me know. But for this moment in time, we're going to talk about Kat Saturn return. And before we get started, I just wanted to first of all, I'm just going to acknowledge my goof. So and I can't even really blame Mercury retrograde because this happened before Mercury went retrograde. I, for some reason in my brain, had thought Kat was a Sagittarius, and that's why I asked her. Because, as you've known, I've been interviewing people that are in that sign. Much to my surprise, when I pulled up her chart, no, that's a total lie. Kat, do you know your big three by any chance?
Um, I am an Aries sun,
Mhm.
um, a Pisces moon,
Yep.
and then rising. I think I'm a Gemini.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yay! And so I always start off, even though I goofed and you're totally not a Sagittarius, which is totally fine. This is going to be a great conversation. And we'll talk about Sagittarius energy just in general in terms of the season. How do you see yourself? Like, how do you see yourself in your big three? Or do you think that there are aspects that you're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely an Aries sun or something like that?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I feel like Aries energy, it's like very like bold in your face and just a lot at times. And
Hmm.
And I feel like I'm not necessarily like that. I've
Okay.
always been like kind of a little bit more reserved,
Yeah,
especially when first meeting people and things of that nature.
sure.
But I feel like I really align with like my Pisces moon and just like how I feel a lot of feels. All of
Well,
the
yeah. Well, you know what, Kat? That's fine. You have a lot of water in your chart. So even though you have that fire sun sign, perhaps you don't really resonate with it too much because you have so much water in your chart that's that's kind of taken over a little bit. But I'm sure that we get some of that Aries, like when you're motivated to do something or you have that ambitious spirit about getting shit done. I'm sure that that comes up every now and again.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
cousin, she's actually an Aries too, and she's always fighting me on just like we are Aries, we need to like give out Aries energy all the time. And I'm like,
Well, it's
stop.
funny because you're even wearing the red, like the color of the Aries too. So that's like because it's ruled by Mars. So that's really funny. Okay, so we got our fire sun sign who feels more water, which is great. Big segue because your Saturn return is in Pisces, in addition to your moon sign being in Pisces. How have things been going for you? Do you have any general thoughts before I kind of launch into what I've got here?
There's been a lot of tears.
Mhm.
Like there
Mhm.
has been a lot of like emotional stuff like all around,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just been a lot with work and then family and
Yeah.
just life in general. Like
Yeah. Well, since you're with the Saturn return in Pisces, Pisces has, I like to call, as a Pisces sun myself, I like to call permeable boundaries. So, like, boundaries are very tricky during this time. I don't know if you've experienced some, having to set boundaries or boundaries that probably should have been set but have not been. So, yeah.
I
Yeah.
I can give you like a story of like
Yeah,
probably
please give a story. Share whatever you feel called to share.
oh my goodness. So you said boundaries and I was just like, "Oh my gosh." Everything's fine now, but maybe like 2, 3 weeks ago, just at the company that I'm working for, we have a very lovely client who regularly texts me. And it's, I finally had to set that boundary when she was texting my coordinator, and I was just like, no, 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 this can't happen. Like, I need to be protective over her too. And this should have
Yeah.
been like a really long time ago. And for you to say that, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is so funny that you talked about work because your Saturn placement is in the 10th house of work. So this Saturn return is going to bring some big changes in regards to work and what work means for you and what, you know, yeah, what's going to come out of it. So keep that in mind.
Oh,
um Well, and I'm glad that you brought up that story. That's a really good one because Pisces is also, as a 12th sign, is really deep and has that intuition. So, for your Saturn return, you may struggle a little bit about how to balance your intuition and how and what you feel through your intuition versus reason. So that I don't know if anything has come up yet or if it's to come, but there may be some instances where you're you're like, okay, my intuition is saying this. It makes no freaking sense based on like what I rationally should be thinking. But this is what has there been any instances like that have come up for you?
I'm trying to think. Honestly, maybe a little bit. Because honestly, I am in like a transition period of work now too, because
Mhm.
my contract is like finally like ending like at the end of this year.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's there's a lot of like different changes right now. And
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to be as like kind to myself as possible to like
Mhm.
just stop and like just take it all in for like a moment because I feel like as you know, I'm like very like go, 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 go. And like what's like the next thing. So
Yeah.
it's it again, like you I feel like you just already knew like all of the things that are going on. I'm like, oh wow.
I mean, yeah, you're being called maybe and maybe that's it. Maybe that's the Saturn return for you is okay, let's take a sacred pause. Let's, consider the space between and like not jump to the next job right away and just take some time for yourself because, Pisces is also in regards to our own self-care. What does that look like for you? And in this Saturn return, you may be called to do not just like tapping into your intuition, but maybe doing some spiritual work or doing things a little bit deeper in your day to day in your practice. I don't know if you have a spiritual practice at the moment, or if you know what that looks like, or if you've considered doing something like that, but that could come up too for the Saturn return.
No, definitely. I feel like when all of this was happening, like when I found out like the contract was ending and all of the things,
Mhm.
I I go to church every Sunday with my family, and
Mhm.
then, like once I got the news, I wanted to go to church, then I got COVID, and then
Oh no.
I had to be away, I had to be isolated, and
Oh,
everything. It was so weird. Like it was just a weirdly weird time to be
yeah.
in, and I felt like myself retreating and like kind of losing like some of like my practices. But
Mm,
last week was like the first week that I was back, and everybody just welcomed me back with open arms, like at
that's
church.
nice. Oh,
That
that's great.
and it was just nice to be around, and like some of like we're friends with like a lot of the people in my church, so
Mhm.
um, they have like kids that are like back in like college, and then they were
Mhm.
back this week, and it was really just like everybody was returning and just like there to like greet me again. And
That's great. Yeah, oh my gosh, I remember when I had COVID, this was last summer, 2022. Uh, I remember it was yeah, you really do retreat when you're when you because you can't see anybody, and so and for me, what was so weird was that my forearms were like all like I don't know, there's something going on there, so I couldn't even write or like couldn't even work. You know what I mean? Like couldn't do anything on my computer. So that really like my hands couldn't like it was weird. But I remember it was really like it felt it felt like Mama Universe was like, okay, you need to like lay down. So it's like similar, right? It's like, okay, you need to chill out. And then it's really great to hear that you had such a lovely, warm reception when you're feeling better. Um, as I mentioned, uh, your Saturn is in the 10th house, which I said is career, it's work. How's your goal setting? Like now, you know, we're at the end of 2023, we're moving into 2024 soon, which in and of itself is hard to freaking believe. But like have you started thinking about like what your goals are for the new year?
like here and there, um, like again, I'm just trying to be kind with myself and take things kind of
Mhm.
day by day.
Mhm.
But I think in like the current job that I have, like I love it, and it's been such a great opportunity
Mhm.
to learn and just grow as like a social media specialist expert.
Mhm.
So I think in my like as I'm planning for 2024, I'm looking into positions where I'm more so like growing teams and like being more senior in
Mm.
whatever position that it may be.
Yeah.
Because I've been very complacent in like the being so involved in like all of the things and making sure like I'm posting, engaging, and like doing analytics, building reports, and like
Mhm.
all of these things. But I think I want to kind of still do a lot of that, but like more so take it from like an aerial view and just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I really just want to be at the next level of my career in terms of
Yeah.
just, yeah, more
Maybe
senior.
more of like a strategist or something of that nature versus yeah,
Exactly.
on the ground, yeah. Um, well, you know, Saturn in the 10th house can also mean serving as a role model or like a leader of sorts. So
Oh my,
who knows, Kat? Maybe that's what it means. Maybe you're moving up in the world and that career up that career ladder. The Saturn return. That's I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, could be worse.
oh my gosh. Again, like it's really crazy to hear like how all of it is like lining up. And
Yeah.
it's the more that like I learn about astrology, like especially like from you and all of the things, like, oh my goodness, like so many things make so much more sense in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and luckily, like, her knock on my desk here, we're in the middle of Mercury retrograde too, so hopefully, like, the tech won't mess up. Okay, with that, let me not call that out and then have that happen. So I always turn to this book, The 12 Faces of the Goddess, uh, goes into all the astrological signs. And, again, I know you're not a Sagittarius, but I want to talk about some lessons that we can learn from Sagittarius and how that can play out. And then maybe we can also talk through some of the planets that are in Sagittarius for you. Uh, so this says here, Sagittarius is about having the courage to push past limitations and step into authenticity, which I feel is so on brand for me. I'm all about that authenticity. So, where do you feel restricted? How do we let go of self-consciousness and audaciously claim our connection to our wild heart? Both Sagittarius and the goddess Artemis encourage us to shake off other people's expectations and to show up as we are with confidence and loyalty to our instinctual selves. So, as I had mentioned, that intuition and feeling into it and tying this now with the lessons of Sagittarius and kind of showing up with a wild heart, showing up authentically, you know, maybe, and again, this is all conjecturing on my part because I'm just, you just told me about these changes that are coming up for you for work. I wonder if it, if the Saturn return for you is an invitation to step into something, more in alignment, more authentically aligned for you, and a way to, yeah, again, step into a more leadership role. I mean, what are your thoughts on what I read just there?
It really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Like, again, I just feel like it's really on the nose, especially like it being like us in, oh my goodness, what am I trying to say? Like in Sagittarius right now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's all taking place like within like this time frame. So
Sure.
there are like a lot of lessons that I'm taking and just like trying to lean into what feels the most authentic to me.
Yeah.
And especially like within this job search, I feel like work has been like the biggest focus on my mind throughout like
Mhm.
the past month and a half or so.
Uh-huh.
And since we spend so much time there, I want to ensure whatever I do next, it's something that I feel passionate about. It's something that I just reignites like my just deep interest in social media and like
Yeah.
the industry.
Something just came to me just now as you're speaking. I wonder if, a lesson or a takeaway from especially Sagittarius season is like a, approaching your job search with like a Sagittarius energy. You know what I mean? Because like Sagittarius is the archer. So, and as I mentioned in the reading Blackwood's book, it's like Artemis energy, right? So like the goddess, like the huntress. So I wonder if like there can be more of an intentionality, but also a fierceness or like maybe a kind of like badass stepping up, like, yeah, this is me. This is who I, right? Like, this is who I am. I should be hired. This is why. And like having more of a fierce confidence, and that can come through as you're applying for jobs for next year.
Honestly, again, like as you're saying this, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yes. Like, me about like 2, 3 years ago, I would not have been able to like go up to people and say, hey, I need you to be my reference for this. And
Mm.
I align with this position. I just walked up to my boss like yesterday.
Yes.
And really, it's just really interesting to see how like how all things kind of like are falling into place.
Yeah. Well, okay, so actually this is a beautiful segue into the last bit that I have pulled up from your chart is that you have Sagittarius is in your 7th house, and the 7th house represents relationships and partnerships. Um, so you have 2 planets in there. You have Pluto, which is basically like power dynamics, transformation, like total upheaval. I don't know if you're familiar with the tarot, but like it's basically like a tower moment where like everything just goes down to the ground and you're like rebuilding again. So like there's a lot of this like, starting a new type of energy in terms of your relationships. And then you also have Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 7th house, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So it's like how can you expand based on your relationships? How can you use your relationships to expand your knowledge? Because Sagittarius is also about higher education or just education and knowledge in general. So, like, yeah, actually, what's coming up right now is what have you thought about as you're on this? And I know myself included, while in between jobs, doing any like professional development or like seeking out certifications or like, are you doing any of that kind of stuff?
Um, I a little bit because
Yeah.
I feel like the last time that this happened was like right before the pandemic, and what I did is my immediate reaction was to take 1,027 different courses I got. Like now I have what is it? Some type of certificate in like UX design and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the route that I'm going to go into again, and just
Sure.
Skillshare is like something that like was popping up a lot, and I was just like, you know what,
Yeah.
let me like go back into that account and just see like what else is in there. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's Sag energy right there. So in addition to being a fierce badass, you know, uh job candidate, it's also acquiring all the knowledge. So taking this time to see what skill sets you want to continue to develop during this transition time might be helpful. But also again, it's with astrology and with all things in life, it's not all like puppies and rainbows, right? Sagittarius can get very scattered, right? When I had my Saturn return in Sagittarius, that's basically how I felt. Like I felt like I was just like I didn't know what was going on. So just beware of that energy might come through. Like don't feel like you're trying to do 5 million things at once. Really go back to what we said at the beginning of this, which was your invitation to slow down, to take that sacred pause, to really take the time. You don't need to get COVID again, but that energy of, yeah, I know, it's like, Lord, do that.
I
Don't get
mean,
COVID again, Kat. But like, the lessons of that time, in terms of chilling out and whatnot.
yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, 100%.
Do you have any particular questions? I have your chart pulled up so I can pull up what have you while we're here. I'm more than happy to answer anything.
Mm. I
Like,
think. Hmm?
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Um, I think I'm just always like laughing at like how much water is in my chart versus like me being a fire sign, and I'm like, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm battling myself.
You got a ton of Pisces, not just water, but you're like me.
This is why we get along so
Your
well.
moon is in Pisces, your Mercury is in Pisces, your Venus is in Pisces, your Saturn is so you your safety, your communication, your like love and relationships and your Saturn are all in Pisces. Which is great. I love it as the Pisces. I'm here for it. This is why we get along because you
Exactly.
have so much Pisces in your chart. But yeah, it's wild. Yeah, you have that fire, but I mean, there's not much else in terms of fire in your chart. So I just think, yeah, I think it's interesting because you're like, yeah, I don't really vibe with this. Yeah, it makes sense.
Like And I feel like that's why I vibe so much with like the Pisces because
Yeah.
there is so much in my chart.
Well, this is a perfect example, Kat, because I've come across people in the past who are like, "Well, I'm not, I'm a Cancer, but I'm not a typical Cancer, or I'm not a Gemini," right? It's like, yeah, because there's like an F ton of other things. It's not just your sun sign. Like,
Mhm.
there are other aspects of your chart that shape who you are. It's more nuanced than that. And that's why I love astrology so much, is because you can always uncover and learn things. And, so similar to that Sagittarius energy, there's always something to study and uncover and get excited about. So yeah. All right. So we got our love for the water and for for Pisces. Anything else before we wrap things up for today?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think of like anything.
You're fine. You said you had looked up some things beforehand. Was there anything that came through in your research that you want to share, or?
Yeah, I think I was looking up just what exactly a Sagittarius, well, Saturn return is.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was kind of just like um I was reading something about like more of this like karmic energy that like we'll
Mm,
have once everything um comes back, when Saturn comes back to
sure.
where it was when I was first born. And then I think I just get so worried every time I think of my Saturn return because it's in Pisces. And I'm just like, so many emotions. And I'm just like, how does one prep for
For all the emotions,
like, yeah,
or
honestly, like
yeah,
how do you prep for like a Saturn return? Is there a way to prep for a
yeah.
Saturn?
Gosh, that's a great question. And I can't even speak to, I can't speak to it for my own personal experience because I didn't know about it either. Like, I was going through all this crap, and then I think I came across a podcast or something like that. This is before I knew much about astrology. And I listened to it and I was like, "Oh my God." So it kind of just like hit me in the face when I was in the middle of it, because I was like, there, searching for answers. Like, there's got to be something going on here. Like, I'm going through it. What the hell is happening? But I guess too, because yeah, you've known about it because we've talked about it before, like back in the day, like, oh, it's coming soon. Here it comes.
It was like immediate panic.
You know what? I think it's like with anything. I think it's especially thinking about astrologically. So for example, right, we're in the middle of Mercury retrograde. So what are some ways that we prepare for Mercury retrograde? If we're traveling, taking extra time because travel might get effed up, being clear in communication because that there can be like lines crossed and miscommunication happening. Backing up and having technology and being accepting if technology fails, right? So I wonder if similarly with the Saturn return, it could be we could take actions like that, something to the effect of just being kind of like what we were talking about, just kind of being open
Yeah.
and just like letting it happen and
Yeah.
like not fighting it, because again, the more you fight it, the harder it's going to be. And then if you especially are resistant, then it's just going to come back in another 30 years. So I think it's an acceptance, and one of those things where like, okay, this may feel like it sucks right now, but it's we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
And and having the idea that like I'm going to come out of it a different person or with a different outcome, and that it's going to be that's going to be more aligned with what meant for me. So I don't know if that answers your question at all, but I don't really know if there's like any particular, I think, and then just taking care of yourself and your nervous system, having your tools, whether that's EFT tapping or yoga or breathing or prayer or friends and family, right? So just having your support systems in place when
Yeah.
shit does get hard.
No, honestly, that does help. Like, because once you first told me, I had so much anxiety about
I
it.
know, I remember.
I think we were like on another like Zoom call or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
remember you were like,
And then I feel like just kind of like having that heads up and just knowing like, well, it is coming, but like just sitting here and just like knowing, well, it's not that the world is just imploding. Like things are happening and I'm open to like figuring out and learning who I am like on the other side of it.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and that's all we can do. Just
Yes.
learn more learning. That's all we
Yes.
can do. It's just more learning, yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's a lovely way to end. Thank you again so much, Kat, for being here today and for chatting through your Saturn return, all the Sagittarius stuff. Despite my goof, I think this was a really great conversation.
It was. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Fun. Thank you. Well, next up for Capricorn season, I'm going to have Analia Weber here with us to talk through that topic TBD, but keep an eye out. And otherwise, at the time of this recording, we're in the holiday season. So happy holidays, happy new year if you celebrate, and we will talk to you soon. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.